Okay. Wow. Oops. Hide. Let's see what we have here. Oops. Little technical change here. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I am not a medical doctor. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. I do not treat, diagnose, or cure. Save those words for the medical community. Instead, I actually help people get their health back through, without drugs and surgery, through natural and holistic means. A lot of education and coaching. I love the work that I am able to do with people because the joy is when the lights come back on. You can see the energy come back into people's faces as they progress through their programs to get their health back and rediscover who they are. Uh, they they start to remember who they are and what they want out of life and all that, and they can re-engage back into life. Um, and a lot of the people that come to me, they're dealing with chronic health conditions, and that's what we're going to talk about today is how do people end up with these chronic health conditions. Okay. um, so I am going to turn on the comments here. I'm going to leave running a ticker on the bottom of the screen. Okay. Tells you how you can sign up with me on a program. I'm accepting new clients. I have availability this week, limited availability. So if you're thinking about coming in and stepping off the fence. Um, Sorry, I just got to make sure that you can all hear me. It looks like you can. Okay. Um, and here in Minnesota, I'm streaming from my homestead office. I do work with people in person or telehealth. This week has been kind of brutal in terms of weather. This morning it was minus 26 degrees outside. Minus 26. Um, that That's cold. Even the dog. We played the game this morning in and out. He wants to go out. Oh, comes back in. Wants to go out. Come back in. It's like a little 5-year-old. You can either go outside or you stay inside. Um, but he would get outside and the ground is so cold. His feet. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's too cold for my feet. He'll come back in, warm up. Then he goes back out, and it was just constant. This morning, I finally told him just go lay down. Um, and that's Louis. He's my buddy. We're good friends. I love him to death. And then my cat, he does not even consider the idea of going outside during the wintertime. He loves to be outside in the summer. My cat's name is Clyde. So I have Louis and Clyde for animals. Okay. Now, I have turned on the comments. I would love to have you pop in and say good morning. Where are you watching from? It's always fun to see where people might be tuning in from across the viewership. Even if you watch the show on replay, drop in the comments where you are watching from because it's a lot of fun. So it's been a good week in terms of client care. I posted out a testimonial, I think, earlier in the week on that a parent had sent in on her daughter. Um, and it's just kids are so resilient when it comes to being on a program. Their young bodies just love the holistic approach to getting their health back. They respond quickly, you know, um, and when the parents support that too, it's a game changer for the kid. And if I love, especially love working with kids, because if I can influence how they're going to learn about healthcare early on in their life, and they start, and I want to be the best first introduction to holistic care for them, so they will consider the holistic care options for the rest of their life. And to me, that's a remarkable opportunity. And I love working with kids, especially when their parents are on a program too, because then I'm able to influence maybe the whole family and bring in some real healing into there. So, all right. So we're going to talk about how do people end up with chronic health conditions? You know, these are things, chronic health conditions, these are things that people have been carrying around for years and years and years. We'll get into some of the deeper details, but I thought it was time to kind of talk about how how that happens. Okay. So um, let's get into it. And if you have any questions throughout the show, go ahead and pop them in there. Um, Maybe I'll turn this banner off for a little bit. Okay. And yeah, good. So if you're joining me today and you've been dealing with a chronic health issue, these are people that are dealing with fatigue, gut problems, hormone symptoms, pain, brain fog, anxiety, or something that just won't resolve. Okay. I want to start by saying this clearly. You didn't fail your body. Okay. Most people that I work with didn't do something reckless. They didn't ignore their health on purpose. They adapted. They pushed through. They kept showing up for work, for family, for life. Okay. And that's really how chronic conditions are born. They don't show up overnight. They're they're not suddenly, but slowly, quietly over years. And in my practice, I almost never see someone who woke up one day randomly sick. Okay. What I see are bodies that have been under pressure for a long time and learned how to compensate to survive. And usually by the time people come find me and I start working with them, they've reached that point where they are just so tired of pushing on the shit, trying to figure out why isn't the body working. They're exhausted. They're ready for a change. And those are the people that I will work with. Okay. Stress for them becomes normal. Digestive issues become normal. Especially, I've known people with their digestive issues, they don't think twice about it, but they swing between have to poop right now, have to poop urgently right now. If I don't sit down, I'm gonna poop my pants. Okay. And they'll plan road trips based on where they know the bathrooms are gonna be. Okay. I've had people like that in my car over the years. It's like, hey, can you pull into this gas station? I have to go. And okay. Happens again 5 minutes later. Hey, can you pull into this gas station? I have to go again and again and again. What a dreary existence that can be. Okay. But it becomes normal. And you just learn to adapt. You learn to survive with that. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. Okay. Even low energy becomes normal, where you feel like you're dragging your ass through the whole day until one day the body can't keep compensating anymore. And that's when people finally start asking questions. So today I want to walk you through how that process actually happens, how adaptation turns into compensation, how compensation turns into chronic patterns, and why healing can feel uncomfortable at first when the body finally starts to unwind those patterns. This conversation isn't about fear, it's about understanding. Because when you understand how chronic conditions form, you stop blaming yourself and you stop chasing random solutions. And most importantly, you start approaching healing in the right order. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk about how people really end up with chronic health conditions and what the body is trying to tell you when it does. Okay. As we get into this, if you're just joining, pop into the comments where you're watching from. It's always fun. And if you have questions throughout the show, please ask, and I'll try to get those answered too. All right. So, adaptation, it's important to know adaptation always comes first. Okay. One of the most important things to understand about chronic health conditions is this: the body doesn't break first, it adapts first. So, the human body is designed to survive stress, and that stress can be emotional, it can be physical, chemical, environmental, or nutritional. It doesn't really matter. Stress is stress to the nervous system. So when stress shows up, the body makes adjustments. It'll shift hormones. It alters digestion. It prioritizes energy and it increases inflammation for protection. And at first, these changes are helpful. You can still function, you can still work, you can still get through the day. And because you're functioning, the signals are easy to ignore. Yeah, it'll just go away. Because we're all been trained to believe that. Suck it up, it'll go away. This will pass. Oh, I'm sorry you feel like shit. Get to work. You have to provide for your family. No, you have to take care of the kids. Keep working, keep pushing, keep just moving through it. It'll pass, it'll get better. Well, what if it doesn't? You feel like you're swimming upriver. I did that for years, years and years, until I just couldn't do it anymore. That's why chronic illness almost never feels urgent at the beginning. Fatigue feels like being busy. Bloating feels like eating the wrong thing. Poor sleep feels like stress. Mood changes feel situational. But what's actually happening is adaptation. The body is reallocating resources to keep you moving forward. And the problem is, adaptation is meant to be temporary. So when stress doesn't resolve, the body doesn't get to reset. It holds those adaptations in place. And what started as a short term response slowly becomes a long term pattern. And that's the moment when adaptation starts turning into compensation. The body isn't healing, folks, it's managing. And it's doing it quietly, efficiently, and without drama until it can't anymore. And that's the part most people never see coming. So, when does that compensation become normal? Okay. Well, after adaptation sets in, something subtle but important happens. The body stops asking for change, it starts compensating. And compensation is how the body keeps you functional when the stress doesn't let up. Energy gets rerouted, inflammation stays elevated, Blood sugar runs on quick fixes. Digestion becomes secondary. Sleep gets lighter and less restorative. But here's the tricky part: you're still functioning. So the brain adjusts expectations. How many times have you done that? It's like, I didn't really want to go out tonight, or I didn't really want to go do that activity with the kids, or I didn't really want to go out with my friends or go visit family. Okay. You start lowering your expectations on the things that you wanted to do. And this is how we stop, in my opinion, how we start stepping out of the vitality, how we stop participating in life that is going on around us. We start to accept less and less. So fatigue becomes baseline. Your bloating becomes normal. Sometimes we just say, well, I'm just getting older. Okay, you're not. Anxiety, joint pain becomes age. Okay. Anxiety becomes personality. Um, who wants to be known as the guy that's wound so freaking tight that he's just a big dick because of the anxiety? Nobody understands what the struggle is going on internally with this guy. Brain fog becomes stress. And because these changes happen gradually, they don't feel alarming. They feel familiar. And this is where people say things like, I've always been like this. It runs in my family. That's just how my body is. Because they've started to accept substandard performance in the body. It's just how it is. It's like they've surrendered to the dysfunction, the chronic challenge going on in their body. I did. But then I didn't anymore. I woke up one day and it's like, okay, today's the day. We're going to figure this shit out. And I've been running hot ever since. And I love, love, love it when I'm healthy. Okay. So, what they're really describing is long term compensation. The body is borrowing from tomorrow to survive today. And it does this remarkably well for a long time. It does. But compensation always comes at a cost. The longer the body compensates, the more rigid those patterns become. The nervous system locks them in as safety, and change starts to feel risky. New inputs feel threatening. And this is why people with chronic conditions often react strongly to things that should help. Supplements feel too stimulating. Diet changes cause flares. Detox makes them feel worse. Exercise wipes them out. And it's not because their body's broken, it's because their body has learned to survive a very specific way. And it doesn't give that up easily. I've seen that time and time again with countless clients over the years. Some clients, when I put them on a program, respond boom, 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 really well. Their body just, yes, thank you, that's what I needed. Other people, their body is like, what the hell is going on? I don't think I want to make this change because it's so used to it. And on those cases, we have to go really slow. Because if we push too hard, the client is going to give up after a couple of weeks, going to quit. They're going to look at me and say, Evenson, we constantly feel like shit. It's time to quit. When the reality is that's probably the time that they shouldn't quit and they should just knuckle down and keep going. I try my best to reduce those type of challenges when we're trying to move the body out of the chronic conditions that brought them in. Okay. So I try to be very aware of the symptom load and how that person is feeling, because we can make changes. We can go slow. And that's what it's about. Working a program with me. When I create a program for people, I don't just create it and say, okay, here you go, good luck, see you in a month. No, I'm with you every week in phase 1. And during that time, sometimes I'll have multiple interactions with a person during those early weeks. Because one, it's a level of coaching and encouragement and education and teaching. And two, it's about staying in tune with what the body is willing to do and to slowly navigate the body through and out of the quicksand that it's trapped in. Okay. We're going to talk more specifically about some of those chronic conditions here in a little bit, but I wanted to lay all of the groundwork before we got into that. So, why symptoms are the last thing to appear? Okay, we're going to talk about that. So, this is the part that surprises most people. All right, symptoms are not the beginning of chronic illness; they're the end of the process. The body is incredibly good at protecting what matters most. And so it will preserve the brain, the heart, the lungs, and the ability to survive at almost any cost. Everything else becomes negotiable. So when the body is under long-term stress, it starts making trade-offs. Your digestion slows down, your hormone balance shifts, your sleep gets lighter, mood regulation becomes unstable, inflammation stays elevated, not because something is wrong, but because something is being protected. For years, sometimes decades, the body absorbs the impact quietly. And by the time symptoms become loud enough to get attention, the body has already been compensating for a very long time. And this is why chronic conditions feel sudden to the person experiencing them. One day you're fine. I'll do the air quotes. One day you're fine. The next day you're exhausted, inflamed, anxious, or in pain. But biologically, nothing about it was sudden. Symptoms are the body saying, I can't keep adapting like this anymore. And this is also why chasing symptoms rarely leads to resolution. And you know that when you go to the medical community with the symptoms, what are you going to leave with? No answers, but you got a piece of paper for a prescription. Let's just medicate it. This will make you feel better. And that's what we've been trained to believe, is that let's just go get a pill from the doctor and cover up the symptom. And nobody ever takes the time to answer the fucking question about why you have that symptom in the first place. I do. I'm going to ask your body those questions. You and I are going to have a dialogue. If you're working with me, we are going to investigate and figure out why those symptoms are there. And I can do that through quantum nutrition testing. I don't have to run labs. When you come see me, you already feel like shit. You already know something is off. The doctors have looked at your labs and said everything's normal, but it's not. And you know this instinctively. That's why you come searching for holistic practitioners like me. And I'm here to tell you, I will work with you and get you those answers. We are going to figure this out if you're willing to make changes as we discover new data and get new information and work new protocols. I'm going to teach you how to eat food and have a new relationship with food. Some people, I'm working with a client, their food is so dialed in that there's nothing I can do there on the food. And that's great because they knew early on that they got to clean up their food. They were doing it, but something else was going on. And in this case that I'm thinking about, she is dealing with parasites. And when you have parasites, you can have the best 5-star meals in front of you, the healthiest versions of food, everything in front of you, and not have your health back. Okay. So you can tell I'm getting a little passionate about it because it's like, come on, our system is broken that is supposed to take care of us. And that's why holistic practitioners like me can have a business helping people get their health back. Because the holistic model makes sense. Your body understands natural solutions, it understands whole food, it understands herbs, it understands homeopathy and naturopathy. It understands the natural things, things that are not made in a chemistry lab, like medications are. So if symptoms are the last thing to show up, suppressing them doesn't address the process that created them. It may quiet the signal, but it doesn't change the pattern. And until the pattern changes, the body stays stuck in protection mode. And that's what prescriptions do. You don't have a statin drug deficiency. Um, what are some of the other, gosh, I see so many medications come through. Levothyroxine deficiency. You don't have deficiencies in medications. You have deficiencies in food, in vitamins and minerals. So now is a good time to talk about what chronic conditions typically look like. You know, what have I been talking about? Some people at this point are like, yeah, but what the hell is a chronic condition? Okay. So I want to slow this down for a minute because when people hear chronic health condition, they often imagine something rare, extreme, or dramatic. And yes, I work with some of those cases. But in real life, most chronic conditions are far more common and far more subtle. And in my practice, this usually shows up as patterns like energy and metabolic patterns. Okay. This is where chronic fatigue that never fully lifts, feeling wired but tired, or you have crashing in the afternoon. You need caffeine just to function. You have difficulty losing weight despite all of your efforts. And that's often the body conserving energy after years of stress and instability. Here's one of my favorite patterns, the digestive and gut patterns. This is the bloating after meals. And talking about bloating, I got to share a story. Earlier, it might have been, I'd have to look at my food journal because, yes, I do journal my own food as well. Um, I think it might have been Sunday night. I had some ground beef, and I'm thinking, oh, what would go good with this? And I opened my cupboard, and I had a box of organic macaroni and cheese, and I thought that would be really good. So I went ahead and made it. I ate it, and the next day I got up. I'm working out in the gym, and I come back in, of course, and I'm in the bathroom showering up, getting ready to shower, and I happen to glance in the mirror, and my belly was so bloated, it had ballooned up like you would not believe. And the only thing unusual that I ate was the macaroni and cheese. It was not gluten free. I thought, oh, just a little bit of this, I'll eat it. I ate it, and it destroyed my. I was so bloated. So bloating after meals, acid reflux or heartburn. This is something I am intimately familiar with because it for me it was so bad. I ended up having a hiatal hernia and had to have stomach surgery to fix it. Knowing what I know today, I didn't have to have that. I could have taken some of these a more conservative approach to recovering my health. But back then, I was in the medical system. I didn't know anything about holistic health. Okay. Come on. Um, so it it took me years after the surgery. That's what got my attention finally. To when I recovered from the surgery and started because I felt some relief for a little while, but nobody had ever addressed the root cause, the symptoms that created the acid reflux, and so they were still present. And then I found a holistic practitioner and got on a program, and I had no idea how stuck my body was. And it had such an impact on my life that I had to learn how to do this work. And now here I am, almost 17 years later, as a doctor of holistic health. I never thought I would get that far. It's crazy to me. I wrote a book not earlier this year. Last year, I wrote a book. Last year, I got to speak at a conference to a couple hundred other holistic practitioners or those who want to be. And it's an amazing journey that I'm on. And I get to work with other people and help them start their own journeys. I love that. Other digestive and gut patterns is the IBS type symptoms. Okay. You could also put in the colitis, the ulcerative colitis. I have experience with that. Then there's the loose stools or constipation, or and these are the loose stools or constipation. These are the pendulum swing people where today they're going to have diarrhea, and then tomorrow or for the next few days they're in constipation, and they finally poop, and now they're just going to swing back into diarrhea, and it goes back and forth. That's not normal, folks. That's not normal. Food sensitivities that keep increasing. And the gut is one of the first systems that the body deprioritizes when survival is the focus. Okay. Another pattern, chronic health challenge pattern, is the hormonal and thyroid patterns. Okay. We have thyroid dysfunction. You can have perimenopause and menopause symptoms. Did you know that if the body is working normally, that you will go through menopause without even noticing? Just one day your cycle just stops coming and everything's good to go, symptom free. That's when your body is healthy. But our society doesn't look at it that way. They have trained to, oh, you must be in menopause. You feel like shit all the time, crampy, moody, bitchy, all that kind of stuff. No, you shouldn't feel that. Your body's out of balance. Okay. For men, it's the low testosterone. Women, the irregular cycles, the mood swings for men and women tied to hormonal shifts. This happens to both sexes. Hormones don't fail randomly. They reflect how well the body is regulating stress and resources. All right. Now, another pattern, the inflammatory and autoimmune patterns. This is where we have joint and muscle pain. Somebody might have Hashimoto's. Okay, Hashimoto's is an immune challenge, and it can be healed. Okay, Hashimoto's does not have to be a permanent thing. It can be healed. It's a virus. Psoriasis. Oftentimes connected to parasites. Rheumatoid type symptoms. Oftentimes connected to wheat and glyphosate. Widespread inflammation. All of the above. These are signs the immune system has been compensating for too long. Now, some of the fun ones are some of the other patterns, the neurological and mood patterns. Okay, this is where we're dealing with anxiety and depression. We get the brain fog, the poor focus, migraines, non-restorative sleep. They're often labeled as mental health issues, but they're deeply tied to physiology and inflammation. Then you have the cardiovascular and circulatory patterns. These are elevated blood pressure, the cholesterol issues, poor circulation, chronic inflammation markers, and these tend to appear later after years of adaptive tightening and constriction. And then you have the skin and immune expression, eczema, the acne, rosacea, chronic rashes, allergies, frequent infections. The skin is often the overflow valve when the body can't process stress internally. Typically, what we know is when things are present on the skin, the liver is backed up, so it's going to push it out through the skin, the toxins. So the key reframe that I want people to hear is these are not separate problems. Most people don't have 5 different things wrong with them. They have one long-standing adaptive pattern expressing itself through multiple systems. So again, the body didn't fail, it adapted. Then it compensated. Then it runs out of margin, and that's what chronic conditions really are. So when you understand this, something important clicks into place. If chronic conditions develop slowly, and if symptoms appear last, if the body has been compensating for years, then it makes perfect sense that when healing finally begins, it doesn't always feel gentle at first. And you're not just changing a symptom, you're unwinding a survival strategy. Okay? And so that's why healing can feel worse before it feels better. Once you understand how chronic conditions actually form, this part starts to make sense. And when healing begins, the body isn't just fixing a symptom, it's reversing years of adaptation and compensation. That process creates sensation. And as support improves, the body starts to mobilize what it's been holding on to: stored toxins, inflammatory byproducts, old metabolic waste, latent infections, long held stress patterns. But here's the key: mobilization doesn't automatically mean elimination. And if the body has been in conservation mode for years, drainage pathways are often sluggish. The nervous system is cautious, and energy reserves are limited. So when things start moving, the system can feel overwhelmed. And this is when people say, I feel worse since I started. And I've seen this, even in my own case. My symptoms flared. Yeah, that usually tells me we're poking you exactly in the right spot. And then I'll hear, I thought this was supposed to help. Well, it is. What's really happening is the body waking up and reassessing safety. Healing challenges stability. Change requires energy. And the body doesn't give that up lightly. This discomfort is not a sign of failure. It's often a sign of transition. But, and this is important, discomfort is information. It tells us about pacing, it tells us about capacity, it tells us where more regulation is needed. And this is why when we force the process, it'll backfire. Okay? And why slow, sequenced support works. And so healing isn't about pushing harder, it's really about supporting the body while it relearns how to regulate. And regulation is what allows healing to stick. And this is the truth that most people never hear. Chronic conditions don't resolve through intensity, they resolve through regulation. So, after years of adaptation and compensation, the body doesn't need more pressure. It needs safety, stability, and capacity. Regulation is how we create that. And so, when I talk about regulation, I'm not talking about anything complicated or extreme. I'm talking about restoring the basics the body depends on to feel safe enough to heal. And that means stabilizing blood sugar so the nervous system isn't constantly on edge. It means improving sleep quality so repair can actually occur. It means supporting hydration and minerals so cells can communicate. It means opening drainage pathways so mobilized stressors have somewhere to go. And slowing the pace so the system can adapt without panic. When regulation improves, everything downstream changes. Symptoms flare less, recovery happens faster, the body tolerates change better, and healing becomes predictable instead of chaotic. This is also where people realize something important. Their body was never the enemy, it was protecting them the whole time. And once the body no longer feels like it has to survive, it becomes willing to heal. And this is the point where most people finally stop bouncing from protocol to protocol and start seeing progress that holds. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, this starts to make sense. Chronic health conditions don't happen overnight. They form through years of adaptation and compensation. Symptoms show up last. And when healing finally begins, it can feel uncomfortable because the body is unwinding patterns it relied on to survive. That doesn't mean something is wrong, it means something real is changing. But here's the mistake I see over and over again. People try to fix chronic conditions by guessing where to start. They jump into protocols. They copy what worked for someone else. They push harder when the body is asking for support. And that's when healing turns chaotic. Chronic patterns don't unwind through intensity, they unwind through order. You don't force the body out of survival, you guide it out. And this is why we don't guess where to start. So, how do I help people with chronic conditions? Well, let me pause here for a moment because It's usually where people ask me, okay, so what do I do with all of this? In my practice, I don't chase diagnoses and I don't guess at protocols. You might come in with a medical diagnosis and I may do the assessment for you and find nothing that supports that medical diagnosis. Because I'm listening to your body's intelligence and it knows where it needs to start to unwind all of this stuff. I start by figuring out where your body is stuck. And when someone comes in with a chronic condition, my first priority isn't fixing the symptoms. It's understanding how their body has been adapting and compensating, sometimes for decades. So I'm going to look at how the nervous system is responding to stress. We're going to look at whether blood sugar is stable or constantly swinging, how well digestion and elimination are actually working, whether detox and drainage pathways are open, where the body has lost capacity. And from there, everything is sequenced. Some people need regulation before detox. Some need drainage before mobilization. Some need nervous system support before anything else will stick. That's why two people with the same diagnosis can require completely different starting points. And so healing isn't about doing more, it's about doing the right thing at the right time. And when you stop guessing and start working with the body's priorities, progress becomes steady instead of chaotic. So, this brings us back to the central idea of today's conversation. Chronic conditions are patterned. Healing requires order, and this is why I don't guess where to start. So, I've turned the banner on again for this segment here. The call to action, it's clear and simple, okay? If today's conversation helped you see your health differently, that's what I'm trying to do, is help you see your health differently, especially if you've been dealing with something chronic that hasn't responded the way you hoped. This next step is simple. Don't guess where to start. I offer a full Q&T initial assessment for people who want clarity instead of another protocol. It's a focused starting point to understand what your body is asking for now and what sequence makes sense moving forward. If you feel like you've tried a lot and nothing has really stuck, this is where we slow it down and get oriented properly. And you can schedule that assessment through evensonholistic.com on my website. Go right to the page. Right in the middle of the home page, begin my journey now. Click that blue button and use the code that's on scrolling along the bottom of the screen. There's a promo code there. All capitals, ready 199. Ready 199. Okay? Get on the books, get scheduled. Let's get your healing journey going again. Go to evensonholistic.com or reach out to my office directly and we'll help you get set up. And if now isn't the right time, that's okay too. Let this conversation sit with you. Understanding always comes before change. All right. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today, it's this. Your body didn't betray you, it adapted for you. Chronic conditions aren't random and they aren't a personal failure. They're the result of a body that stayed in survival mode longer than it should have had to. When you understand that, the story changes. You stop fighting your body, you stop chasing symptoms, and you start working with the wisdom that's been there all along. Healing doesn't happen by force. It happens through understanding, patience, and order. And when you approach it that way, progress stops feeling chaotic and starts making sense. So thank you, thank you for spending your morning with me here on Morning Coffee with Doc Jeff. If this conversation helped you see your health differently, sit with it for a bit. Awareness is always the first step. And if something in here resonated with you, or you see it in somebody else's journey, please send them the link to the show and have them watch. It's about education and raising awareness on this. And once you're aware and you know that there are some options out there, you can maybe take the next step and follow along with the banner down on the screen. Okay. So that's it for the show. I'm going to close with a prayer here. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the wisdom woven into the human body, for its ability to adapt, to protect, and to endure. We ask for clarity for those who are struggling, peace for those who feel discouraged, and patience for those who are in the middle of their healing journey. Help us to listen instead of force, to understand instead of fear, and to move in the order you designed rather than in our own urgency. Give us discernment to know when to act, humility to slow down when needed, and trust in the process of restoration. May each person listening be reminded that their body is not broken, that healing is possible, and that you are present in every step of the journey. We place this time and this work in your hands. Amen. All right, everyone. I love you for tuning in. Today was episode number 83. And hopefully you got something out of the show. I would invite you to sign up for a full assessment, okay? And come on. And then follow me on Facebook. You can, I'm on Instagram. I'm on X, LinkedIn. And I was wondering if it would be of value. You know, I've been having fun with some of the posts this week. Go through, follow my personal profile on Facebook. You don't have to friend me or anything. You can hit the follow button because it's set up as a professional contributor, content creator. Follow that, and daily I put out new content, and I try to get creative with the imagery on the post. Lately, I've been running in a kick of vintage magazine ads and things like that. So those always I always have fond memories of looking at stuff like that when I was a kid. But it's fun to look at, I think. And if you have any comments or anything you'd like to see on the show, please drop that in to the comments and let me know. So that's it for today, folks. Finishing a few minutes early, which is sometimes always good. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.